We only started our farm 3 years ago, and it's been one of the most nourishing things for our spirits and our human connection and our human beingness that I've ever done in my life. We got interested in spirituality and food and ended up giving up alcohol and becoming plant-based, and we got interested in kind of food and going, oh my God, if I go really extreme into the food and if I start fasting and cleansing, and can I enlighten myself?
Food, irrespective of your religion, your creed, your race, food brings people together, and it's a wonderful pleasure that all humans share. And we just thought the gateway of food is a wonderful opportunity to try to build a better world.
In the UK, obesity levels have gone from 5% in 1980 to nearly 30% in more recent years. And it's not because they're not exercising or things like this. It's really because of the food environment.
Most people can agree with the more whole foods you can eat, the better it is for most humans and the better it is for the environment. And that's kind of a place that we keep coming back. It's kind of a universal thing that most people will agree with.
The isms, they don't help. I think they just exclude people and they turn people off. And it's like, no, this is about simple things. It's about eating more beans, eating more whole grains, eating more fruit and veg, and trying to eat less of the other stuff.
There's no perfect with health, and there's no point in you eating 100% healthy and not enjoying it, because food is pleasure and the experience is important as what you eat.
We are the placebo, and our beliefs massively impact our immune system and our wellness.
Welcome to The Wellness Way with me, Philly J. Lay, a layperson's guide to your natural health systems, your very own NHS. Hello, lovely people, and welcome to another episode of The Wellness Way. And I can't tell you how excited I am about this one, because I've got the Happy Pear here. I met Dave and Steve Flynn. It was at the Russell Brand community 18 months ago, and I rushed down to the barrier at the beginning when right at the front when you came off stage, threw my book at you, Dave, and went, will you come on my podcast? And here we are.
It's happened.
Down the line, and it's happened. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Delighted to be here, Philly.
Oh my God, have I got a lot to unwind with you. But before we do, I just want to ask, I came across you in lockdown like so many people did, and you were just a breath of fresh air. You made me laugh. You swore a lot. You did fantastic plant-based recipes. Where did this passion come from? Because you're twins. What started it in your childhood that you kind of went, I want to give up meat?
So we're identical.
Okay, go for it. We're identical twins, and I think for anyone who isn't identical twin, it's hard to relate to, but it's like you're born with that expression in Spanish, my media naranja. Many of us are looking for someone to complete us. And in a way, I was born with someone that has always loved me unconditional, someone that understands me without talking most of the time, and someone who will support me no matter how stupid my idea. So it's given us this wonderful natural security. So it meant that you could really pursue kind of things that weren't unconventional things.
You could go full tilt at things. You didn't have to. You didn't have you don't quite have as many fears as other people.
Even for example, today we were travelling over from Ireland and we were walking through the park, and I was like, oh great, here, let's go do a quick workout. And we're hanging out at poles, and then we're doing sprints in the middle of the grass. And if I was on my own, there wouldn't be a chance I'd do it. But when there's two of you, it's like, of course you do it.
So you nearly get others to join in,
Yeah, well, they say a problem shared, and you share a problem, it's a problem halved. Well, being an identical twin, I suppose you're just two peas in a pod that get on and do everything that you need to do and support each other and have the same ethos.
But I don't think we answered your question in terms of us becoming plant-based. We grew up in meat and two veg, loads of pints, very kind of male, the four boys, all boys schools, a lot of rugby. We played semi-pro rugby. And then come 22, we just finished university, and Steve, we both studied business, not because we had any interest in business, we just studied it. And Steve turns to me and he says, Dave, I'm going away travelling, I'm not coming back till I'm happy, and you're not coming with me. And we'd shared a room, we'd shared a wardrobe, we had spent no more than a handful of nights apart ever in our whole 22 years. So it was a big deal. So we both went away travelling separately in separate parts of the world, and the seeds must have been planted before we left, because both of us kind of...
I found my way to Whistler, and in Canada, and I happened to... There was a guy, a friend of my mom's granny's dog's brother, like as in Greystones, his little connect, and they knew someone that lived in Whistler, and they said I got his number and I could sleep on his floor of his apartment. And I went up to his apartment, and there was a fella cooking dinner from Australia, and I got chatting to him, and he told me he was a vegetarian, and I didn't know that men could actually be vegetarians, because I had never met a man that was a vegetarian in my little world. So suddenly it was like, wow, man. And this sounds absolutely so naive and so stupid, but like back then this was like 24 years ago, Ireland was a very different place. And like,
so around the year 2000.
Yeah, it was around 2000, and it was kind of like I had never met a man that was vegetarian, and if I ever met a woman that was vegetarian, I apologise, because I was such an arch carnivore. And here I was, wow, what do you eat like? And he was cooking some kind of Mexican food with beans and cumin and coriander, and I'd never tried like coriander or cumin, because in Ireland it was a very meat and 2 veg, very traditional diet, and I was fascinated. And instead of being a Whistler where it normally would have been in the centre of parties and would have been like going out all the time and drinking and all this, was like, no, like I feel something's changed in me. Like I would just finish work and I'd go down to the library, read vegetarian cookbooks. I was obsessed. And I remember phoning Dave up, because this was kind of pre-social media, where you'd a Hotmail email account and you'd check it once a month. And I'd message Dave saying, Dave, like I think I'm better than you now. Like I've decided I'm a vegetarian. And lo and behold, Dave, who was in South Africa, pretty much around the same time he decided.
Yeah, to be the same kind of thing. We had both kind of gone on this journey where I guess we'd gone through that period of looking outside of ourselves for happiness. You know, we both were those kind of overachievers. You know, we were, as we said, we played semi-pro rugby. We both played off scratch and golf. We played baseball for Ireland. We did modelling. We were those very externally kind of seeking approval via various different means. And so then we went away and we kind of inadvertently on our own journey of self-discovery. This is back in 2000. We both went away for a couple of years separately. We got interested in spirituality and food, and ended up giving up alcohol and becoming plant-based. And we got interested in kind of food and going, oh my God, if I go really extreme into the food and if I start fasting and cleansing, and can I enlighten myself? And yeah, I remember doing like a 7-day water fast in the jungle in Costa Rica, and all sorts of different adventures and all sorts of different things. And we were 22 and 23 at the time, so we were very young. But that was the precipice of us starting the Happy Pear. Steve called me up and said, hey, listen, everything's changed. Like, do you want to like try and inspire more people? Do you want to start a movement around this? And I didn't know what that looked like. And he said, do you want to start a vegetable shop? Like, let's start with a vegetable shop and see what happens. So we
started the Happy Pear age 24 with a dream of using the
age
medium.
24 in 2004, so 20 years ago.
Yeah, using the medium of business to create a happier, healthier world, and to try to build community. Because food, irrespective of your religion, your creed, your race, food brings people together, and it's a wonderful pleasure that all humans share. And we just thought the gateway of food is a wonderful opportunity to try to build a better world.
But even to build on that, it's more the context of that wouldn't be relevant 100 years ago, because people just ate normal food. It was real food. But since 1950, the food environment which we live in is mostly processed foods, and we're living. We aren't making the healthiest food choices that we can do. And it's not about perfect, but it's about we're kind of gone to the extreme. If you look at in the UK, obesity levels have gone from 5% in 1980 to nearly 30% in more recent years. So
and it's rising,
and it's
fast.
Not because of the people's willpower. It's not because they're not exercising or things like this. It's really because of the food environment.
And the food environment is designed to be addictive. This is not people's fault. We're not having a go at people. Just be aware of the fact that, they spend a lot of money on food to make it addictive. Ice cream is the same ratio as mother's breast milk, 50% fat, 50% sugar. It's designed. They do this on purpose. So you both went on this experience at the same time. I mean, I turned vegetarian in 1980.
Wow,
and
good
people
going.
thought I was absolutely fucking mad. It was just like, you can't live without meat, kind of. And I remember I lived in a little bedsit in London, and I didn't have a kitchen, but I had a pan in my room that I could kind of just put all my vegetables in and cook on a Sunday. So I said to some friends, come over for a Sunday roast. They went, but you don't eat meat, so you can't do it roast. I went, oh, I can. And I just roasted so many different vegetables, and I made a gravy, and they were going, bloody hell, this is the best roast I've ever had. I'm going, I know, it's cracking, isn't it? So, and it just kind of proved to me that I didn't need meat. But I've changed my opinion slightly on that. Before we get to that, I want to talk about the fact that you very much say plant-based and not vegan. And the vegan movement is a very big movement. And a lot of the food is crap, really, isn't it? Can we talk?
Well, it's. I guess we've been eating a vegan diet for about 24 years, so quite a long while, and I guess we've realised that it's easier to attract that expression. It's easier to attract flies with honey rather than vinegar, and that we found for the first number of years we were quite preachy and we were quite evangelical and quite judgmental of others. Thou must eat as pure as we are, this type of thing. And we realised over the years that like there's no perfect with health, and like we found that a much easier message is try to eat more whole foods, and the more whole foods you can eat, typically the better it is for you. And there's no perfect diet. Everyone's different. It's a bit like religion. There's no perfect religion for everyone. You know, everyone sees the world slightly different, but I think most people can agree with the more whole foods you can eat, the better it is for most humans and the better it is for the environment. And that's kind of a place that we keep coming back. It's kind of a universal thing that most people will agree with.
But yeah, because it just can be too extreme. You know, what we found is sometimes within the vegan movement, it can be very judgmental and a lot of infighting, and it's more judgmental than, you know, that we found it just being so much easier to say, meet people where they're at and go, hey, this isn't an exclusive club. This is applicable to everyone. Everyone's got a body. Everyone wants to be healthy. Everyone wants to wake up with the energy. So, and if you look at the average UK diet, it's 55% ultra-processed foods, it's about 35% animal-based foods, and it's less than 10% whole plant foods. Whereas if you look at the longest living populations of the planet, it's completely the other way around. It's like 90% plus of their diet is made up of whole plant food. So it really, the isms, like, they don't help. I think they just exclude people and they turn people off, and it's like, no, this is about simple things. It's about eating more beans, eating more whole grains, eating more fruit and veg, and trying to eat less of the other stuff.
I think my point there really, I completely agree with you, but my point was more that there is a lot of vegan food out there that is lab grown.
Oh, that's ultra processed, and that
it's
is so
highly ultra processed,
Yeah.
and it's got a lot of seed oils in it, which we know are toxins for the body. So can you kind of talk through what you think about these lab-grown foods and these highly processed vegan foods?
Yeah, we've a 4-acre organic regenerative farm, and I guess we've worked in the food industry for 20 years now, and it's been kind of our life's work, and it's something that we're deeply passionate
and
about.
even just to say our experience, like, we've sold 20 million of our food products. So we've sold a lot of our food products, which we've got our own production facility where we make hummuses and pestos and granolas, and so we have been in the food industry as manufacturers, as restaurateurs, as cafes, as farmers.
I've been to your cafe, and
Yeah.
I have to say, I had the most beautiful meal there. I came with Barbara O'Neill when she was in
Okay,
Ireland,
yeah,
and
it was
I
amazing.
interviewed her and said, should we go and have lunch at the Happy Pear?
that's really
And we
cool.
met you, and you just had a baby.
Yeah, I had a really little. She was tiny,
She
I
was
think.
wrapped in your coat.
Yeah.
And we
And
had
she's running around
but
there.
I didn't realise you grew the food. So
Yeah, we have a 4-acre organic regenerative farm, and I guess, you know, even if I think when we grew up, you know, and even when we first started the shop 20 years ago, people knew their potatoes. They knew a potato wasn't a potato. It was like, is that a Kerr Pink? Is that a Morris Piper? Is that a
Queen's,
a
a
Rooster?
Golden
Is that
Wonder?
the Queens are in? Oh my God, I can't wait to have a Queen potato. They're so flowery. And, you know, people knew, like, there was a much closeness to the land and to the seasons. You didn't have strawberries in December. You had strawberries when they came in. And when we first started going to the fruit market, there used to be like such excitement when the first of the strawberries would come, and they do an auction, and people would spend like 20 quid like to buy a punnet of strawberries, because it was like the first punnet of strawberries of the year. Oh my God.
My dad started pick your own strawberries in the UK, so
Wow,
I
you've been in
remember
this for a long
that
time,
first
yeah.
punnet of strawberries coming in. But I still eat seasonally. I don't have strawberries unless
Well,
in
you're
the UK.
like-
And, you know, something like asparagus, the asparagus season, you know, my children and I count down to it because
Yeah, it's
I love
beautiful.
asparagus. But I don't want it flown in from Peru. It's got no flavour.
Of course. And even like, I think of ourselves with our 4-acre organic regenerative farm, when like courgettes, you're really excited when they come in. When the first ones come in, they're succulent. They're like really juicy and you can eat them raw off it. And like, we'll grow like 4 or 5 different varieties. And then by the middle of the season, you're like, I fucking hate courgettes. And then towards the end of the season, you're like, oh my God, courgettes are gone. I won't have courgettes again for another 6 months. So it's like, I think seasonality gives, you know, if you look at nature, the most creative and most diverse and the most resilient of all ecosystems are the edge. So it's like where the meadow meets the river, where the river meets the bank, or where the sea meets the shore. So it's like the edge. In the same way with most of life, the creativity is on the boundaries. It's the edge. Like, you know, you look at most creative people, they're kind of hanging on the edge. And typically, if you look at the most seasonality, what that does is it provides boundaries. And around that edge, there's more excitement. Because if you think about a bar of chocolate, if I give you a bar of chocolate now, the first square typically is the most amazing. The last one, you're like, oh, and in the middle, you're kind of just getting through it. And I think seasonality helps punctuate, you know, different foods coming in out of season.
Is the chocolate metaphor that when you're eating a bar of chocolate, just eat 2 squares? Because you got the first square and the last square. That could be the metaphor within it. It could be, you wouldn't know. Another way of looking at it.
I think the thing is that you have just such a greater appreciation. I think gratitude is such an important part of eating, and, you know, giving gratitude for the farmers, for the seasons. You know, I've got a swede sitting in my car at the moment. That
Swede. Most people listening won't know what a swede is.
A swede is a type of turnip.
Oh,
A rutabago, if you're from the States, that's what it's often referred to.
But I just got really excited because there was a guy selling them on the side of the road near me, and so I kind of pulled over.
Wow.
And he had 2 vegetables. He had a Swede and a Romanesque, and I'm like, both of them my favourite. Bring it on.
They're fancy veg.
Jeez, well, because very often Swedes are just fed to cattle. You know, that's nowadays what they're more often used as cattle feed rather than...
Like, because when we first started the veg shop, most veg that people would buy would be Swedes, carrots, cabbage. You know, you get a like kind of old ears coming in getting your cabbages, wondering, do they have a good heart in them? And people wouldn't buy avocados, didn't know what aubergines were. You didn't sell peppers. You know, we didn't sell these food, whereas nowadays it's changed. People don't buy potatoes.
Our most popular things that we sell are avocados and lemons.
I mean, they have a huge carbon footprint. Not that I think we have a problem with carbon, because we're made up of carbon, and so I think it's very important that we keep producing it so that we can, you know, and our plants. I mean, the British government have just they're spending 22 billion or something on a plant to suck up carbon, and it's like, don't spend 22 million on a plant to suck up carbon. Plant a fucking forest.
Yeah.
You know, it is so ridiculous.
Or keep the
topsoil
land
covered.
Topsoil covered.
This fear that we have of things that we're made up of. You know, we're made up of viruses as well. And yet, look what happened in 2020. Are you sick and tired of feeling sick and tired? Are you lost and lonely on your way to wellness? Do you like a nice cup of herbal tea? Then come and join me in my community. For £11.11 a month, you can come and join me on a Zoom. You'll have access to my work, my 2 books and my video series. And also we'll be in a WhatsApp group together so that we can keep each other motivated and guide each other on our way to wellness. And as a special bonus, I will throw in my herbal tea tutorial. You will also get my meditation album, The Wellness Awakening, From Past Lives to Passing, because every month we're going to do some breath work and meditation together. Head over to phillyjlay.com for all details. And remember, the doctor of your future is you. So, you started your beautiful farm shop, your shop and your restaurant, and you started growing. And then I came across you with some cracking recipes in 2020. But having seen you at Russell Brand, there are a couple of things I want to ask you. You did the most fun cooking exhibition I have ever seen. You were just hysterical, the two of you, and you were doing handstands, and you were just incredibly funny. But one of the first things you said is grab a non-stick pan. Any thoughts on that? Do you regret saying that or not?
No, I can't say I'd regret saying it, because in life we're only aware as we are in every present moment, and we're not aware of everything. You know the way everyone is an expert. Most people are experts in certain areas, but no one's an expert at everything. So even in our journey over 20 years, I can look back and go, oh, we didn't really know that bit, or I didn't know that piece of the puzzle. And over the last number of years, non-stick pans have become more, you see, and in the last couple of years, it's been seed oils, and all these other things are becoming more in the consciousness of the public at large. So pans, yeah, like certainly Teflon pans were a thing of the past, and they're not really part of non-stick pans nowadays. I know the ones that we use now are recycled and eco pans, and they are still called a non-stick pan, even though they don't have Teflon in it. So I think it's the terminology sometimes. I think most non-stick pans nowadays don't have Teflon at all in them, and Teflon was the main carcinogenic component that was in it, to my understanding.
From my understanding, having have you ever watched the movie Dark Waters?
Yeah.
Cracking movie. I heard something, I don't know if it's true, so theoretically, that Teflon just changed the name of the component in there that was carcinogenic. Wow. Okay. So, this happens, the same happens with sweeteners. There's a sweetener that's going through a rebranding at the moment. And they've made it sound...
Like, well, I was walking through Victoria Station today, and we were looking across that, whatever it was, WH Smith's, and I saw there was an ad for Red Bull, and it said 0 calories gives you wings, and I'm like, 0 calories. Now, what loopholes did they jump through? Because, something that has those sugars in them and things of like... They're probably not the typical sugars, but there's something in it that's giving you calories. There's some trick or some loophole, because something can't fuel you and not have calories.
And on the topic of like health and like non-stick pans, I think in our experience, like people pursue perfection, and perfection doesn't exist. And in our experience with health, I think it's about doing your best, and I think that's great, and that the nature of the human experience is that we're going to be imperfect, and I think we got to lean into that we make mistakes, and lean in that like we all aren't perfect. Like we were over there just waiting for here, and we were sitting on the side of the curb, we were eating oranges and we were eting figs and Brazil nuts, and it was lovely, and we were sitting on a little wall, and then it was like, geez, we go into that pub across the way and get a non-alcoholic beer, and it was such a lovely moment, and it was like, maybe it's not quite as healthy as orange and Brazil nuts, but the experience was so enjoyable that I don't think health is perfect. And like we often say with people, like we were doing a talk yesterday in two of my boys' school. We were doing a fundraiser to the parents to try to get them to help them to eat more veg.
Fundraiser for the school.
Yeah, to help the parents help their children eat more veg. And we were kind of saying like, there's no perfect with health, and there's no point in you eating like 100% healthy and not enjoying it, because food is pleasure, and the experience is important as what you eat. And I think being eaten with gratitude, joy, excitement, appreciation can be as healthy as what you are eating. So,
and I'm even going to build on that and say, and this is from our experience, because we got, as I said, went kind of off the deep end in terms of food and optimizing it and tweaking it, and
sprout
raw. Everything's raw, and everything's green juice, and everything's sprouted, and oh my god!
I went through that sprouting.
And till we became neurotic. We read so many books about so many different things that we'd lost. If health is a 5-legged stool, we were living on one leg, and the other 4 legs had fallen over, like as in social connection and mental health and these other things. So I think
and we were a pain to be around.
We probably were a pain to be around, because we were so neurotic and judging everyone and what they were eating. So I think it's
the same has been said of me in the past.
So I think it's that like there's so many aspects to wellness, like there really is, and I think having joy and jubilance and enthusiasm and something you love, and eating good food most of the time, and moving most of the time, and sleeping well, and these kind of things, you're winning. Like that's it. That it's sometimes if you optimize, unless you're sick. If you're sick, you probably have to dial things up to the full for a period of time. But once you're your batteries are going and you're flying, I don't think necessarily optimizing to the nth degree is essential all the time.
Talking about when you're sick. So, I grew up and I brought my children up, even though I didn't...
How many kids do you have?
Sorry?
How many kids do you have?
I have 2 girls.
Good.
My eldest daughter she always comes for Sunday roast with me. whenever, if she's in the country, she gets on a train and she comes and has Sunday roast with me. So she came out last Sunday, but I was on a bone broth fast with my community. And I went, no roast today, darling. And it's all vegetables. I don't cook I cooked a turkey breast on Christmas Day for my girls. But I said, we're on a bone broth fast today. I'm sorry, there's no food. And
Roasted
she's like,
bone broth.
so that's what, and she said, well, I don't feel very well and I've got a really big lump in my throat and I feel really shit. And I said, great, you should be fasting, and let's knock it on the head. And the next morning she woke up and her body was aching and she was crying, went, please, can I have some Nurofen or cold and flu? I went, no, just give me another 24 hours, honey, and we'll get this sorted. And we did homeopathy and we did reflexology and we had a far infrared sauna and I threw everything at her. She woke up the next morning as right as rain and went, bloody hell, mother, how do you do it? But my question is, bone broth to me has always been penicillin. So even though I gave up meat, when I was very, very ill, I put bone broth back into my diet because I knew I needed the nutrients of the bone broth. How do you feel about something like that? Do you think, because there are so many studies on bone broth and how it's penicillin. They call it Jewish penicillin.
Wow.
And there's that amazing book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, which is
he's great.
spirituality.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a place for things like that?
I think there's a place for everything. Like, I genuinely do. That, it sounds like it really works. Like, for you, it really, really works. Like, for myself, I don't know. Like, we've eaten this way for 25 years, and I'm not completely closed. Like, I'm open to whatever seems true in each moment. But right now, bone broth doesn't seem true to me right now.
But
I'm not dishing it for anyone else. I'm just talking from a purely personal point of view.
I had leaky gut. So somebody had told me that it would, because when you have leaky gut, you are incredibly ill. It's bad. And I was in a bad way anyway. And somebody just said to me, bone broth, because the collagen in it would help seal my gut back up. So that's why I put it back into my diet. And I have to say, I've never looked back.
Brilliant.
Seed oils. I want to come to seed oils. You mentioned them earlier, Dave. There's so much in the news about them now.
On like a bigger macro perspective on it, like, oil is a refined food. Like, as humans, you don't, on a tree, you don't file like, a jar of rapeseed oil grown on a tree. Like even olive oil, it's a refined food. So all oils are a refined food. And like, in our experience, we've had about 20,000 people through our Happy Heart course, and we partner with a cardiologist. So we've kind of helped many people kind of lower many of their markers for cardiovascular disease through eating a whole food plant-based diet that's low in fat. And it's worked. It's really worked. Lots of people have come off statins. Lots of people have, thousands of people have reduced their blood pressure, their cholesterol, and kind of improved their overall health.
You see, I think the cholesterol levels are wrong.
They could be. They absolutely could be. There's so much stuff that could be wrong.
I guess lower to bring statins in and prescribe them myself, but
sure. But I guess in our experience with like doing it firsthand with people and actually seeing people's health change and like literally seeing their weight change and literally them.
But even if it is not correct, you can see it like. The way we are the placebo and our beliefs massively impact our immune system and our wellness.
Yeah.
And a bit like for you, as you just said there about bone broth, you have the absolute belief that it healed your leaky gut. And that is 1,000,000% true for you in that experience. Yeah. And for someone else, that may not be true. And the same way, I think each one of us are the placebo, that our belief about things, that if someone believes they lower their cholesterol and their incidence of blood pressure, the probability is that, the body, we are all... Everything's kind of talking to one another in a different way, more so than we can imagine.
But even to go broader go back to your seed oil thing, like all oils are refined foods, and in our experience, or like what we try to do is we try to get our fat from whole food sources. So we'll eat nuts, we'll eat seeds, we'll eat olives, I'll eat avocados, I'll try to get my fat from that kind of source. I might eat seaweed, I might take a supplement if I want to get some more DHA, etc. like that. In terms of seed oils, like we have, as Dave said, we have a production facility and we make a lot of pesto. We make like thousands of tubs of pesto a week. And we used
Did you bring me a tub?
I brought some. I should be able to give you one. Yep.
There you are.
Yeah,
We've got
definitely.
one
I'm
for
so
you. Fabulous.
jealous.
Yeah, we're just launched them in the UK, so we brought some samples with
Wow.
us. Yeah.
Which is great. But in our experience, the price of olive oil over the last 5 years has gone up from €2 a kilo to €9 a kilo. This is Irish currency, or
it's
the
gone up
euro currency. So it's gone up
450%.
450%. So it's really impacted our business. So we've had to go to part locally grown rapeseed oil, because the olive oil we were importing from Spain, we were importing it from Greece. It was there was quite a lot of logistics, a lot of transport, a lot of work in it. Whereas you could find my friend up Keith, he grows it on his farm. He grows it organically. It's
He
extra
drives the
virgin.
combine.
He drives the combine. He brings it down. He delivers it to the thing. You put it in. It's like there's something about the local, the closeness, the smallness of it that's beautiful. And then you grow the basil on our 4-acre organic farm. My daughter picks it. We bring it down. There's something beautiful about that, because we've got into this idea that seed oils are bad. Avoid seed oils, and then we'll be healthy. Whereas I think the bigger thing is that all oils typically, in our experience, the less we eat them, the better, because they're refined foods. You know, a bit of oil, great. It makes things taste better, delivers more satiation when cooking. It raises the temperature, enabling more caramelization. So it's wonderful if you're a chef. Oil makes things taste great, but it typically isn't that good for our short, medium, long-term health.
You see, I don't think seed oils. Sorry.
So I was just going to say in terms of seed oils, I think
You're not at school.
I don't think it's seed oils as in adding them to, like, cooking in them is the main issue. I think seed oils are in a lot of refined and processed foods and ultra processed foods, and they're put in there along with, like, you know, if someone was eating a largely whole, like, real food diet, whether it's with lots of veg and beans or meat or things that are, you know, real foods, and they're cooking in a little bit of oil, that's one aspect of it. But then it's really the processed foods and the amount of processed foods that we're eating, and there's a lot of additives and preservatives and oils in there, and salts and you know, all sorts of combination of different things. So it's
Now,
this.
you see, my children said when they were little that my food tasted like shit, and now they love my cooking, and they said it was partly because you just didn't know how to season, Mum. There was no salt or pepper, and I said, well, I grew up in an era where I was told that salt was bad for me, and yet, you know, the weird thing is that, you know, if you're in hospital for any reason and you're on the edge of death or whatever, they will put you on a saline drip. What is that? Salt. We're made
like
up of
salt water,
salt.
yeah.
You know, we need salt. You know, and I'm a big fan of Barbara, and, you know, Celtic sea salt has completely changed my life. And my children said the moment that I discovered and I use cayenne pepper rather than black pepper now, my cooking just changed. But when you talk about the processed food, Dave, and you talk about, you know, the salt and the chemical, that isn't real salt in there, is it?
It's probably ionized salt, which is, you know, 2 minerals versus a sea salt, which has got like 92 or 96 minerals in it. So
it's lacking 90 minerals.
Yeah, most likely. And it's not like the food industry is trying to be malicious. It's just within capitalism, for people to make a profit, they typically have to resort to the cheaper ingredients. So it's not that the food industry at large is malicious. It's just the system at large incentivizes cheap, because cheap makes profit, and cheaper tends to be the lower quality salt and the lower quality ingredients, because you've got to hit a certain price point in a supermarket because the customers aren't going to pay this. So it's more systemic rather than any person being malicious.
You see, I don't understand that, why people have this mindset of paying less for food, because, you know, without our health, we're nothing. You can live without Netflix. You can live without a lot of things that people continually pay money for every month. And yet our food bills and budgets, people are always trying to get them down. And yet, you know, let thy food be thy medicine.
100%
You know, it's
I think it's hard. Like, you know, my wife is Polish, and we go over to Poland, you know, a number of times throughout the year, and she lives in rural Poland, and it's a bit like the UK or Ireland. The way I imagine it would have been back in the 60s or 70s. You know, the shops close on Sundays. They grow all their own food. They preserve it during the summer, so they have it during winter. They have a piwnica, which is the Polish word for basement. You go in there and it's like just full of jars of like fermenting kapusta kiszona, like sauerkraut. You'll have gherkins, you'll have cabbage, you'll have squash, you'll have pickled peaches, you'll have, like, it's remarkable. And like say I was there at Christmas and I was cooking, I think I was cooking a dal, and I went out, I was looking for onion, celeriac and carrot, and I go out to the Chepladnia, which is the greenhouse, and rustle under the leaves and through the sand, and I pick a carrot up, because the old way of preserving our veg throughout the winter season was we'd put them in sand, and that was the way you kept them fresh. So I'd pick it up, dust it off with sand, and off I'd go. But they live really close to the land, and there's this, I know myself, you know, and even for most people listening, most people, about 75% of people live in urban environments, and in a city it's typically more competitive, it's more concrete, you're more detached from the natural world, you're more a human doing than a human being. And I know myself, when I, you know, say I'm working throughout the day, I'm often kind of caught up in doing something. I got the next task to do, I better keep going. And often I don't want to go to the farm. And then when I arrive in the farm, it's suddenly like, there's a whole other rhythm. And I think it's difficult. It's very difficult to prioritize health. You need to be very conscientious about it. And it's so easy for us all to judge society at large and go, oh, we shouldn't be watching Netflix, we should be cooking healthy food. But for many of us, we're stressed,
I watched a great
and we're
show on
overwhelmed.
Netflix on the way here.
For many of us, us included at times, you know, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you just want something to like numb you. And I think that's escapism. And I think most people will pay more for entertainment than they will for good food, unfortunately. And that's just because society is stressed. Many of us are disconnected from the natural world. Many of us, you know, could be lacking some sort of faith. It's just society has changed a lot. And it's like, often when I go back to Poland, I look at my parents-in-law and I really admire their simple, beautiful, quite a virtuous life. I'm quite like, there's such romance in this simple, slow life. Like, I often feel like days are like weeks there, because it's just, what will we do today? We'll have lunch and hopefully we'll have dinner, and that's kind of like it.
Perfect.
Yeah, there's something lovely about it, but you know, it's not everyone's cup of tea.
It's how I grew up.
Yeah, there's something really lovely
But
about
I was going to bet on that in terms of like I would love everyone to prioritize their health, but like very often it's not until people get sick that they kind of go, like most of us take for granted our health. Like particularly, like we were very strange being 20 and get it like 22 and gone on this health journey. You know, usually people wait until they're older, and more often than not, it's women come to it much more than men. Like we've been doing cooking demos, like healthy cooking demos and healthy talks for 2 decades now. And the rooms are usually 95% plus, and usually 99% women. And there's a couple of men in the room. Like it's.
I think what I find strangest with you both, not that you're strange, but what I find strangest is that you're, I think, the first guest that I've interviewed that haven't come on this journey because of a health crisis in your own life. You just found this, and I find it very remarkable that you were separated and you both found it at the same time. It's just like, wow, that's.
I think the seeds were probably planted before we left, and then there was probably this curiosity to life. Like we're both very curious creatures, and as Stephen said at the very start, being identical twins, you're a bit more reckless, or you have a bit more security than the average person, because you know you've got someone to pull you out of the hole when you fall into the hole, quite literally. So we'd always be very curious. So when we both went through
that idea of safety in numbers, you know,
safety numbers,
we were always a number.
That we were always a number. So when we went away traveling separately, we both were like, what else has life got on offer? What else is there? Like, because there's this money game that most people are playing, and I know people that have lots of money and they don't seem happy. So like, what are the games are there? So we started getting curious about spirituality and kind of realized that, okay, well, alcohol doesn't seem to be making me connect to a greater, you know, the greater whatever else life has in. It seems to be blocking my connection to some degree. That was my own interpretation of it. Food must have an effect on my connection to life at large. So I guess we went on this journey of uncovering food and going, well, how can I connect better to life? How can I enjoy this human experience to the maximum? And food and all these kind of things started unlocking. So during that period, we got very interested in spirituality. We both did those Vipassana meditation centers. It's those 10-day silent meditation retreats. I remember we went and we both did ones of them and spent maybe 6 weeks living in one of them, helping and serving and cooking. And then we adopted that. We used to meditate for 2 hours a day for years. So we got very interested in, you know, what else life has on offer. How can we deepen our fulfillment with life? And I guess food was the gateway. but ultimately it's unlocked kind of joy. Like, how do we live with more joy and purpose and meaning and connection and all these kind of more loftier values that are further up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if anyone knows that.
I think that's what I love about you guys most, is it's a whole philosophy for you. It's not just the food. You were talking then about meditation. How long do you meditate for a day now?
Oh, I have 3 kids and a life. Like in my 20s, I could absolutely indulge 2 hours a day. In the weekend, maybe bonus hours. Yes, But then
those Saturday 4-hour
sessions.
But where about, what a treat! Oh, yum! Yes! Oh, wow! But I guess we have 6 kids between us, not together. I have 3, and Steve has 3, and I've got a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So
someone asked you the day.
So someone on Saturday. So we're about 45, and I was in the cafe on Saturday, and I had my baby Fia. She's 1.5, and I'd her in the sling. And a lady said to me and said, "I didn't know you had grandkids." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's hilarious!"
Oh my God!
No, it was like, thankfully, I didn't get offended in any sense. I really just found the humour in it, but it was quite interesting.
So
funny.
not a lot then.
So meditation, no. Like, I guess more important for us is we swim in the sea every day.
You do.
Swim in the sea, and that
at sunrise.
Your lovely long
Jackets,
Yeah,
and
so
then
we swim in the sea at sunrise every day, or at least I do at the moment, and it's something that's deeply, I guess it's become such a part of my day. It's a ritual that I do every single day when I'm at home, and I do it at sunrise. And it
How long have you done it for?
About 10 years, and like sunrise in Ireland and the same UK, it changes every day. Like at the moment, sunrise is around 8:30, so we're in January. We're January 15th, I think, and then in June around the summer solstice, sunrise will be about 4:50. So it changes massively. So my routine has to change with the light, and there's something beautiful about every day getting up, walking down to the sea. Seeing how the sea has changed. Is the tide in? Is the tide out? Is there lots of seaweed? Is it wavy? Is it calm? Every single day without fail, it's like, I don't want to get in. I'm warm. I'm comfortable. I don't want to get into that cold, feckin' Irish sea. That wind is so stingy. I don't want to get in. And then I get in, and suddenly I'm reminded how small, how insignificant I am. I'm reminded that, like, I'm just part of this wonderful tapestry of life. And that, like, the sea kind of just holds you up, and you kind of float, and then you come out and you're like, I'm full of jubilance and gratitude.
You feel like a 5-year-old. Like, you feel like a 5-year-old. It's like, yes, oh my God, it's a beautiful day. And you forget your worries. Like, it's a nice
just a wonderful ritual that I do every day. And some days I do it, there could be 100 of us doing it. And some days it's me. And some days it's just me and Dave. And it's something that brings me such joy.
Do you do it as well?
I've always done it every day. And now having a 1.5-year-old, I just have to let go of. I can't be rigid. Because it's this chapter of life my family is the absolute priority, and
as it should be.
Yeah, so I make it at the weekends, but at the moment I walk my teenage daughter to school every day, and that's more important, and that's at 7:30 a.m. So it means that I can't quite.
And one thing I'm like kicking around more in my own head is that, like, we had this cool Dr. Melanie Joy in our podcast, and she's kind of a psychologist, and we were talking about. She coined lots of different phrases, but she was very much into, like, that the idea that it's not necessarily what you say, but it's the context of how you say it. Like, say me and my wife are having a discussion, and I could say, I love you, or I could say, like, I love you, and it's like how we say things as important as what we say, and the atmosphere of the conversation is more important typically than what we say. The way, like, you could be right in what you're saying, but how you said it was totally wrong. Like, I often discuss with my son, and like I often think as well with how we eat, it's as important how we're eating our food. Like, our food choices are hugely important, and then that moment of sitting down and appreciate and kind of, it's an opportunity to connect with the landscape. And so many of us forget this, that what we eat literally rebuilds our whole physiology, and it's an opportunity to connect with the landscape. It's an opportunity to connect with the seasons. It's an opportunity to kind of like remind ourselves that we're part of this wonderful dance of life. But like, I most of the time don't remember that. I'm just like eating a Brazil nut going, it's lovely. Yeah, it was nice.
I have a friend who when I eat with him, I'm always reminded that every time he comes and he's come and stayed the last few years, and we went and visited him there. Marcus.
Yeah,
he's amazing. But every time you serve him dinner, he sits for a minute in silence before he eats. He takes a minute, and it's an uncomfortable amount of time. Like, it's not, most people can like manage 10 seconds of going, oh, thanks for the food and thanks for everything. And he's like,
that's me,
but
10 seconds.
10 seconds, but he's like a minute. It's an uncomfortable, it goes like double the amount of what might be comfortable. And then he eats, and it's like, I really admire it. And I want to be like that someday, because I just think it's a great move. I think it's a really good habit to get in, to kind of connect. And I'm going to build on that. So we were talking about food and nourishing your body and that. And cooking is one aspect that when you cook, I think you've got the opportunity to nourish yourself, because you're cooking, you're transforming these raw ingredients into a meal that's going to nourish your body. So you've got the opportunity to nourish yourself twice. But when you are involved in growing, in facilitating the growing process, I think you get a triple fold. Like, it's like a triple whammy.
3x.
It's 3x. It's a 3x return. I really do believe that you've got like the eating your food. Sure, you've got one aspect that's going to nourish your body, and when you cook it, and you're like, and it's not just a lash the dinner out. Sure, sometimes you've got to lash the dinner out, but if you can be a bit more enjoying the process, and I'm feeding my family, and this is wonderful, or I'm feeding myself, whatever it is, and then when you get to, if you're involved in some aspect of the growing, like, it transforms it. Like, when you're growing, I just know the produce in the farm, like, I do not waste anything. Like, it is not a courgette. That is so many wheelbarrows of soil. That is so many hours of Alessia's and Chris's time and our time on a Saturday and my kids up there. And that is not just a courgette. That is glorious. That is a fruit of our farm. And I'm going to turn that into something wonderful. So it's a very different process. It's got sweat and labour in it.
And can I go even with one thing? Like,
oh, here we go. We're like trying to see. We're being competitive here now. See,
like I think you know.
Pick me.
Yeah. Like, in modern day society, like,
here he goes. Go Steve. We
reduce things to simply names. An apple is an apple, but in reality, there's 2,000 different varieties of apple in England, and they're all very, very different. And when you go out to, say, for example, we used to have a beautiful, what was it?
A Tideman early Worcester.
But there was a Jupiter. There was a beautiful Jupiter tree in my old
That's
garden.
an apple tree.
It's an apple tree, and you go out and you'd pick it, and you'd see in spring, you'd see, first of all, you see the first of the buds come, and then you'd see the flowers come out, and then you'd see the flowers turn into fruit, and then you'd see the little fruit, the flowers obviously be pollinated and turn into fruit, and then you see the fruit go from being this kind of pucker, bitter green to turn into this beautiful, ripe, succulent one. And then you pick your first one, and it's like, it's crispy, which is weird to think for an apple, and it drips down your face, and it's like, when you appreciate the context and the story and the connection to the land, it's not just an apple. It's so much more. And I think for me, the more I can connect with the story and the narrative, it gives me greater meaning, and it makes me appreciate things more.
I agree. What's your favourite apple?
I'd probably go with those Jupiters.
I like a Discovery.
They used to grow out in the back of the shed. Out the back, we'd keep logs, and it'd rattle down on top of the corrugated arm and run down. You get them, and it was like, oh, love them.
For me, it's a russet.
Oh, I love a
think
russet,
anything
yeah.
else
I
is
don't
a
really like
russet.
russet. I find them too powdery and too dry.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
I had one
love
recently. It was
them.
gorgeous.
But
Yeah.
again, apples, the way that they're preserved for supermarkets, you can be eating an apple on a shelf that's been around for a year.
Yeah. They're normally
So it
stored in
hasn't
the
got the
oxygenated storage.
nutrients that, that going and picking it and just...
Yeah, we've been
having-
learning a lot about how food is grown through having the farm, and we're realising that, like, we're kind
Into
of
nutrient density. We've got very much into growing for nutrient density. And
What does
on
that
our farm.
mean, Dave?
So certainly we're on this journey. So we don't know. We're on the journey. We are very much disciples on this journey. We do not have all the answers. So I'm saying this as a preset. But there's a guy who Dan Kittredge, he started the Bionutrient Institute in Massachusetts. And he came over and did one course with us in autumn, and he's doing another one in spring. And he's amazing because he's been into, like, as he says, organic, regenerative, local, biodynamic. They just tell you, they don't tell you what nutrients are in it. They tell you what's not in it. Like, organic tells you it's not chemicals and pesticides. Local tells you it's not flown from miles away. Regenerative says it's probably prioritizing the local environment. These terms, they don't typically tell you what's in it. So he developed a spectrometer where he could go into a supermarket and shine it on, say, a carrot, and he'll get a reading from 0 to 100 of the nutrient density, the nutrient level in a carrot. And what he's found is there can be a 2,000-fold difference between the level of vitamin C from one carrot to the other. There can be, and this isn't dependent on organic or not. This is just, and it all comes back down to the soil quality. And his whole his message is really that nowadays our food system prioritizes appearance and shelf life. Not deep roots, shallow roots, because we're using artificial fertilizers and pesticides and fungicides and herbicides and whatnot. So we're very much on this journey of how can we grow nutrient density. So we use a refractometer to check the brick score of our plants, to see the health of our plants, how their ability efficiently they're photosynthesizing and converting the sugars, the sun's rays, into sugars, which ultimately leads to more nutrient density in terms of the food. So we started a system of how can we grow nutrient dense foods, because that's one thing that
one thing we found that really helps is that we put sea salt on our beds as we start our beds.
Sea salt and rock dust.
And rock dust. We put rock dust to
remineralize
the beds first.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. We're really learning so much. We don't till either because we don't want to break up the mycorrhizal in the soil. So it's like we're really learning.
So you do no dig, really?
We do no dig. Yeah, absolutely.
But once again, we're very open, a bit like we're not in. We don't want to be prescribed to any dogma. Like, we don't spray any chemicals. We don't spray anything. It's very natural.
We are certified organic.
We are certified organic. But it's a bit like the veganism and the vegetarian put people off. We want to grow nutrient dense food. That's what we're.
That is amazing, because it is something that's so overlooked now. And I remember reading something many years ago when I started my journey, that an orange that my grandparents would eat, I'd now have to eat something like 156 of those to get the same nutrients, because it is so watered down. You're right, everything comes from the soil. And yet
microbes. Microbes. Soil is the same amount of microbial biodiversity as our guts is. They're the two most similar kind of ecosystems. So it goes to it's not surprising when you think that food grows in the soil, all minerals come from the soil. Minerals come from rocks are broken down into the soil, food grows in the soil, they absorb minerals, and then we eat it. And the plants develop
post-industrial revolution, the green industry came about.
The green
revolution, post-World War II, where people realised they could use NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium to help, in essence, act as an artificial fertilizer. So it meant they didn't have to develop soil. They didn't have to really work on nourishing the soil. Suddenly they could spray this and it's like, oh, great, I can get a yield and I don't have to do as much work. So we kind of, in many ways, developed ways where we could grow more food quicker for less work,
which was brilliant,
which was amazing, because it meant we could feed so many more people. But the other side of it is that we've been depleting our soil of nutrition for so long, and I think nowadays there's lots of farmers turning into realizing the importance of remineralizing the soil and encouraging more microbial biodiversity in soil. And we'd love to encourage more to do that, because then it means we're all going to be eating better food.
It's vital, because I remember when I was a child, they said we only had 30 growing seasons left with the soil.
There was a UN thing. We've got 60 years of topsoil left, which is probably about 7 years ago.
We've surpassed that 30, and we're still growing. I'm very concerned about the future of food. With people like Bill Gates coming into the food market, he's now the biggest landowner in the USA, and funding a lot of lab-grown food. Do you think there can ever be a place in our health and our gut for lab-grown food?
I don't know is the honest thing. I just know that for us as human beings, our own experience with, we only started our farm 3 years ago, and it's been one of the most nourishing things for our spirits and our human connection and our human beingness that I've ever done in my life. It's just so fulfilling and so enriching, and it gives us food as well.
It's a miracle, isn't it?
But it's weird. It's amazing how we're all looking for purpose and connection, and whatever getting in the soil and growing is just And
I think there's so much in this world that we can look at and kind of judge and see it as wrong and see it as bad. But there's also so much beauty and so much fabulous. And I think like anyone who tunes into the radio, you can listen to whatever you want. And I think for us, I always look to nature, and I think nature is beautiful, and nature doesn't judge us, and nature supports us kind of unconditionally, and we are ultimately nature. And I think that's a beautiful place for me to go to.
We're coming to the end of our podcast, and I could talk to you guys for hours, but I'm not going to go without mentioning your new book, The Happy Pear. So
Happy Pear 20. It's celebrating 20 years.
20 years.
20 years. Yeah, it's the.
My God.
This
It's
is
the
our best.
fruit. It's the fruit of 20 years. It's the best recipes, stories, and learnings from 20 years.
And
I've
we
just
really want a
op-
packet full of soul.
I've just opened it to mushroom and pumpkin Wellington with red currant jus. Oh
Right,
my
that's
God.
nice.
So I have a final question for both of you. So if you were on death row, now obviously you're not going to be on death row, but if you were on death row and you were going to have your final meal of your life.
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Would it be a steak? No, I'm joking.
No, I like
What would it be?
to go back to like context being as important as context. Like for me, the most perfect meal isn't necessarily about the food. It's like I would be at a market. Don't know, maybe it's the south of France, could be South America. I'm sitting at the side of the curb. The sun is rising. There's hustle and bustle. There's that hope of pure potentiality in the day. I can hear the birds. There's just such jubilance in the day. Dave's sitting beside me. We're hoeing into a mango, some figs, maybe some nuts. Not really too bothered. Just delighted with life.
Watching the show.
And that to me is
Watching the show, I love
perfect.
that.
Yeah, watching the whole thing unfold, watching the hustle and bustle of the market, and oh my God, this white peach is amazing, and you're hungry, and that's better than any Michelin star meal you could ever get.
For me.
But you haven't answered my question about what the meal would be on death row, where you can't have the experience. And the reason that I didn't say the last day of your life...
It would probably be fruit. It would be fruit of some form, like if I could get a whole load of, as in figs, like nice figs and white peaches and mango, like those are
That
some
are
of my
ripe
favourite
and in
foods.
season.
But I don't think you'd get them all at the same time that are ripe. That's the hard thing.
That is the hard thing.
Yeah.
Mine would be a roast dinner.
There you go.
I could live on roast dinners.
Oh, lovely.
So, where can people come and find all your work? You've grown this huge social media following. 2020, I think when I found you had about 20,000 followers on Insta, and you're now nearly 1 million.
I think if anyone wants to find out more, you find our website. We've got, I think, cumulatively a couple of million followers across all the social media platforms. We've got a recipe club if anyone wants support, and a whole health tribe. Those are our kind of community-based platforms on our app. We've got a cafe and a farm in Ireland if anyone wants to visit, and we're launching our food products in the UK. So that's our huge
Fantastic.
thing, which is our granolas and our pestos and our hummus. So we're really, really excited
And
about
where
that.
are those going to be sold in the UK?
Hopefully everywhere within the next number of months.
Fantastic.
That's the plan.
It has been an absolute joy to have you on the podcast. David, Stephen, Flynn.
Thank you, Phoebe.
The Happy Pear. Thank you from The Wellness Way. And remember, everybody, the doctor of your future is you
Oh, I
and
like
your
that.
soil.
I like that. Very good.
Thank you,
That's
guys.
a nice one.
Bless
Thanks,
you.
Philly.
Very,
That's
very
great.